Cool. Okay, yeah. Cool. So we're just going to put everything onto the screen in front of you guys. I'm going to start from there. Cool. I think we're good. Can I ask them questions and things while I go? Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to go through very basic editing processes that would work for most of us. Do you guys all have some editing suite, or do you guys use Photoshop or Lightroom or any of that? Yes, no, sort of. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to chat about a couple other processes that you can go through. So I'm on a program right now called Bridge. It's Adobe Bridge. It is a great website to sort of sift through your work. At the moment, I've just put like 3 images into Adobe just to sort of have a look at them. You can go from essentials where you see all of those things. They're really tiny though right now. What's nice is that if you go into essentials, you can actually see what the metadata is. The metadata is basically what explains, well, what the image comprises of. So, for example, this image was shot at an f5.6 at 1/125th of a second and on ISO 200. It also shows the size of the image, how many megabytes it is, and the color that I used. So it's quite nice to sort of see what goes on there. Another thing that's really nice about this is that you can actually go into it and sort of put in information about it. So for example, you can put the GPS from where it was taken. So for example, in this case, this was taken in Port Elizabeth. So I could put the fact that it was photographed there, which means when somebody else opens up the image, they get all the details. You can then put things like your own details, so who took the photo, whatever. It just helps to sort of streamline things. Anyway, so I'm going to go into film strip, which just shows things a little easier. I chose 3 images just to sort of go through. The one is one that I had from a while ago. The other one was one from yesterday, and then this was also from yesterday's little walk that we went on. I'm going to start with the photo that I have done before. It is a camera raw image, so what is going to happen when I open it in Bridge, it's going to come up with another box. It doesn't go straight to Photoshop. It comes into a second box that is called Camera Raw. It's just loading. So when you're in Camera Raw, it's basically the first step into going into Photoshop. So what you can do here, so this image is quite warm, as you can see. It's quite warm. There's a lot of yellow tones to it. So because it's so warm, you almost want to add some blue into it. So you would take the slider at the top there. I don't know if you guys can see it. There's the basic stuff, and then it has the temperature and the tint. You would go to the temperature and just sort of pull the blue out a little bit. But now if we look at it, it's sort of come out to look a little bit magenta. That's the purple color. So you would pull just a little bit of the green in until it looks like really balanced. So that's just basic color correcting. So remember yesterday when we did the white balancing of the images? Basically, that prevents you having to change the color balance in post-production. So what you want to do, ideally you want the color balance to be done in camera and not have to do it outside of camera. But if you have to do it out of camera, you can just go through this process. It works really quick and easy. So I have gone through some edits on this one already. So originally this was darker, as you can see. So I would have pushed the exposure levels up just to get as much light as possible, but without it getting too bright. So that's just the easy way to do it. Contrast, again, it would have been Let me just put them all down. So we see how it looked before. What you want to do with exposure, you can add a little bit of light. It just adds to the image. From there, if you want to get some more contrast, you can just pull the contrast slider up. And then from that side, if you want it to be really highlighted or not quite as highlighted, you can pull your highlights up or you can pull them down. Are you guys seeing the difference? Cool. So I'm going to add some highlights there just to get this image looking as high key as possible. Then if you want to add shadows or not, I'm not going to add too much shadow just because I don't want the detail to go away. Then whites, this also just adds to the lightness of the image, as you can see, if you go back and forth. Oh, that red that pops up. If you click at the top of these two, of the histogram here, basically if you tap on those, it's going to show you where the image is being clipped. So that just shows where the image is getting overexposed. So, for example, in this case, if I pull the whites up too much, all that red is basically where it's overexposed and you're losing detail in the photo. And that obviously you don't want. So I'm just going to add a slight amount. As you can see on the earring, it is sort of clipping a bit, but that's fine because you're not going to notice it too much. The blacks, I'm also just going to add a little bit of contrast there. Yeah, so that's basically the easiest part of it. You can go into curves, which is another way of putting highlights and lowlights in. But I'm going to do that more in the following thing. What I was saying earlier about lens distortion, we've got an option here on optics, which allows you to remove chromatic aberration. That's where the green and the purple kind of hit. That's when I explained how certain lenses will add that purple or green like tinge to it. This is where you can remove it. And then also use profile corrections is basically where it corrects how the lens would have distorted it. So if the lens is making it bend too much inwards or too much outwards, this will correct it. Luckily I was using a 50mm lens, which, this one was an 85mm, so it doesn't need to be checked too much because the 85 doesn't distort things as much. And then within that, you've got this option at the bottom. And this is super important if you are going to go in and edit afterwards. You want to make sure that your color space is an Adobe RGB. It's just the best color space. It's the most universal. From there, you want to put your depth to 16 bits, not 8 bits, because 16 bits just allows you to do more. 8 bits can ruin it a bit. And then you want your resolution to be 300 megapixels or pixels per inch. Just allows for the bigger thing. And then you want to open it as a smart object in Photoshop. What this allows you to do is just to add as much, it just allows you to actually work on the image a lot better. Okay, so I'm going to open this object. It's just taking a second to load. Okay, great. So as you can see, there's that weird little block there on the bottom of that image. That is it just shows you that that's a smart object. So what I first see in this image is she's got a little bit of acne at the top of her forehead, but I'm just gonna do a basic cleanup there just so that you guys see how you can clean it up. But I'm not gonna clean up on this layer. So basically when you're working on Photoshop, you have different layers, and each layer builds up to create another image. So you don't want to just edit on the bottom one because that is destructive editing. You always want to have one, like the original layer, just in case. So I'm going to pull that down to that little plus sign, which is the duplicate form. And then I'm going to right click on the image and rasterize the layer, which allows you to edit on it. So I'm just going to call this skin cleanup. And then from there, we can then go into that and we can start cleaning her skin up. So on the basic side of things, I would go into this, which is your patch tool. I would right click on that and do spot healing brush tool, which just allows you to, it's a quicker and easier way, just a basic way to clean things up. I'm going to make the brush bigger, which is, you know, the square brackets. So if you click on the square brackets, you've got the one that makes the things bigger. It's on the right hand side, or you've got the left hand square bracket, which makes things the brush smaller. So I'm going to make it a little bigger, and then you can literally just paint, click and drag, and it helps a lot with, it basically removes all the blemishes. And it's a nice, easy, quick way to do it. Yeah, so that's a nice, quick, easy way. I'm not going to do it all just so that we can move on. But as you can see, it's already like done quite a bit. I'm just going to do the last ones here. Move down a little bit. Help with this dark spot. Okay, cool. So that's just a basic of that. Then what you want to do often is, if you want more contrast and like depth to the image, you might want to add a curves layer. So a curves layer is basically, you're going to have your, so just on that, so you're going to have your curves layer, which allows you to pull and drag down the lighting. So in this we can see that our brights, so our whites and our brights are quite high already. That would be because the background is very bright. The image is quite a bright image. And then we see that the blacks and things aren't as high. So what we can do is bring that down a little bit and bring this up where it's a bit lower. And you see the difference it already does. So just from that to that, it just adds that extra depth. So yeah, that's just the basic things. You can also use levels, which is this little button that looks like a little mountain top. Also, just pull and drag. Okay, it's not dragging. Again, same kind of principle. This allows you, though, to bring your midtones up and down, which is really nice. Yeah, so that's just a very basic way to edit, just to start off with. And that would be just quick for portraits, very basic. You can then go into filters and things, but I'm not going to go all the way into that because it is quite a lot to deal with. And then what you can do, then I'm going to go on to this landscape, which was shot yesterday. Also, again, we've got our basic things here. This was quite a blue image, so I'm going to add some yellow into it because the green was becoming quite blue. So I'm going to add a little bit of yellow. Going to add some exposure, but not too much because the sky is already clipping and we want to keep that detail. I'm going to pull some contrast in there, bring the highlights down. So you can bring the highlights down if it's too bright. So we've got those red spots there, but luckily they're not too bad. If we want to bring shadows down, which I'm going to do just to add some more depth to the sky, and then I'm going to drag the whites down just to also get rid of that, the clipping in the sky, and then I'm just going to pull those down a bit. And then again, we want to go to optics, remove chromatic aberration, and then change the profile. So if you look at it carefully, it does change slightly. And that would be because I used the 50, and the 50 has a slight bit of distortion. So we go from there to there. Then again, I'm just going to make sure that all of these settings are right. The 16-bit, the 300 dpi, and then I'm going to open the object. Okay, cool. So that's open now. Luckily, this is a landscape, so we don't need to worry too much. I'm just going to add an extra layer just in case there is any cleaning up, but I don't think there will be. I'm going to rasterize this layer again as well, because then I can work on this one, so that's over there. Then from here, I don't see anything that I need to, so you can zoom in, which is, you can do that with a mouse, and then I'm just going to check and see if there's anything that I don't want in the image. There's nothing really that I don't mind being in there. So then what I want to do is add some curves to it. So the curves are the basic things. It just adds that, like we did in the previous one, it adds that contrast that we really want. This one again, the clipping, there is a bit of clipping over there, but there's not too much. We're going to bring that down a bit, bring that up a bit, but we don't want it too much. With landscapes, however, what you might want to do, because if you look here, this is slightly darker and this is very bright at the top. So what you want to sometimes do is work just with the bottom. So at the bottom, I'm going to add some light. I'm just looking at this area here. I'm not looking at the sky, I'm just looking at the foreground. You want to add some light in there, right? So don't worry about this getting too bright. And then what I'm going to do, if you look at the bottom here, there's a little square with a little circle in, and that creates a mask. So I'm going to click on the mask there. And then over here, I'm going to click Alt-I, which inverts the mask, which means that you can work on it as it is. So that allows you to then take your brush and paint over where that would have. Okay, why is it not painting? Okay, you want to take your brush, change that. Sorry, I had it on the wrong setting. Take your brush, paint it. Oh, why is it not doing it now? Yeah. Okay, give me 1 sec. Okay, I'm going to do this. Sorry, there was a bit of an issue there. Okay, so you don't need a mask, you can just invert that image, which is Control I. So then I'm going to paint. Sorry, just needed to do something there. Then I'm going to paint on this. You can just do it nice and big because it's not too much to do. So basically just a rough painting. Sorry, it's going to be very rough. Just going to put this up so you can change your opacity to being quite high. Just going to paint the bushes in the foreground to make it lighter. And then if you look at it here, you can see the difference there. Now I'm going to do the same, but for the sky. I'm going to pull the contrast down quite a bit, so we're just looking at the sky, we're not looking at anything else. And pull that down, and then I'm going to Control I again on that layer, and then I'm going to do the exact same as what I did down on the previous layer. We're just going to darken the sky. And already we can see quite a big difference in how much contrast there was with. So it already looks quite a bit brighter. I'm going to just use levels to up the midtones of the front. So I'm going to do another layer, sorry, and then just brighten this foreground a little bit. So it's just a very simple way of getting that like slight pop. See there. And then if you want to do black and white, which I quite like doing with landscapes, you'll use the black and white filter there, which will then give you the option to change the different tones specifically. So if you want to change just the reds, so if you look at that, there's certain red tones in the image, and you see how much it changes. So I'm going to do reds a little higher there. Yellows, there's probably going to be quite a lot because it is a landscape and they will have a lot of yellow in. The greens, there's not too much green in there, surprisingly, considering it was taken outside. Blues for the sky. See how much different it gets when you pull everything down a bit. And it just adds a little more. So I'm going to bring this down a little more. And then what you can do from there, so now you've got your black and white. What you might want to do after that is do some more curves, just to add a little more. And then another thing that you can do is there's this bottom circle, there's a circle right at the bottom that has a little half, it looks like a little half and half. What you might want to do is use a gradient map, which will then come out like that, which you can then do Command I again, and it'll invert it. Then we can see the difference between, just adds a slight little bit of contrast there. So that's very basic editing with Photoshop. Yeah, that's very basic method that you can use, doing the black and white. Yeah, so that's quick and easy. I would suggest Photoshop being I find Photoshop to be the easiest. Bridge is great because it just allows you to synchronize all of your work and go through them. But yeah, I think that's the basics that we would have needed to cover. Yeah, cool. Have you guys got any questions? Pardon? Oh. Okay, we're just waiting for the mic quick.
Hi. So let's say you're doing a portrait, right?
Yes.
Similar to the one you just showed, where there's like a bunch of contrast. And you want to add like some noise to the image. Or you want to add some noise to the image.
You want to add noise?
You want it to look grainy, right?
Okay.
The thing with noise is that it usually like quiets down like
the tones.
The tones, right?
Yes.
So how do you add the noise without it completely quieting?
Unfortunately, noise will quieten it down completely. But what you can then do is do another curves layer. So I'm just going to exit out of this one real quick. Just 1 sec, sorry.
No problem.
Oh, goodness. Sorry, 1 second. It's just taking a moment to load. So this is the thing with RAWs. Sometimes they just take really long to open because they are a lot bigger than the JPEGs. But the thing is with RAW, you can do all this editing. With JPEGs, it's a bit difficult to do that. So what you'd want to do, I just want to double check. You can go to filter at the top there, noise, and you can add noise.
Yeah.
And then you'll get this here, which, I don't know if you can see it too much. Let me add a little more. So if you look, it does have a slight hazy look to it. I'm going to add just a little more. Wait, let me get 1 second here. Okay, so yeah, filter, noise, add noise. Then if we look at it, you can see it starts getting noisy. You don't want to go too bad, just in case it distorts the image too much. So there, I think that's a good amount. There's the before, there's the after. So then what I would do, just to get that contrast up, I would go back to the curves layer. And now you see how there's space in between the edge and that?
Yes.
What you can do is pull it horizontally there, because that'll add the light that is now missing from the noise, and pull it horizontally that way.
Okay.
So just see there already,
Yeah.
it's added quite a bit, and
Yeah.
it's still noisy.
Yeah.
If you want to go further, you can add a bit of an S curve as well. So then you've got that noise, but you've also got the contrast.
The vibrance, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Is there anyone else who's got a question? No one? Oh, okay. Yeah. No. No, I start straight from Photoshop. Yeah. Yeah, so, yes. Oh, let's talk about that. Yeah, so basically, I use the adjustment layers up here most of the time, just because they are easy to use and you're not damaging the image. The main adjustment that I use are mainly curves, a bit of hue and saturation. So if you want to do some hue and saturation, that's more, you can work on just the reds, for example, so that's probably going to hit her skin tone. Like if you go all the way there, you see what the reds do. I'm going to do that. If the color was a bit weird, you can take on the hue section and you can change, see how that changes the skin. So you can go like add magenta, add greens, and it does change the skin quite a bit. But I'm not going to do too much on that. But yeah, adjustments are basically where it's at. I would do curves, levels, hue and saturation. Then the filters are quite fun to play with. I'm not going to go into too much depth there, but you've got the noise, which is fun because you can also add like dust and scratches, for example, which I'm also not going to go through too much now. But you can really just play around there. Yeah, so that's the basics, I guess. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you export, since you've edited this as a smart object, how do you then export it? Is it a JPEG or DNG?
Okay, so I usually just export it as a JPEG. So what I would do then is, so first you want to flatten the image, right? So what you're going to do is right click on the top one, and then where is my flatten image? There we go, sorry. You want to flatten the image because then it just sort of merges all. Okay, this one is not doing it right now. It just merges all of the layers together. So, okay, it's taking its time to do it right now. But it'll merge all of the layers and create one total layer by itself. Then you would go to File. On the newest version of Photoshop, you would save as a copy. Because you would save it as a copy, and then you would go onto whatever file you want, save or change it from Photoshop to JPEG, and then you would just click save, and then that's about it. Yeah.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
Let's say you wanted to print this image on a huge canvas.
Yes.
What would your image size most likely be?
So it depends on the size of your canvas, because you can always, I usually just Google the size of the canvas, and then what you can do is image, canvas size, and then you would put your sizing in there. Otherwise, you can go to crop, and then in the crop part, you go to your width, height, resolution area over there, and then you would go and put your width and your height in there, and then I would say you put it on 300 pixels per inch, because that just gives you the highest resolution, and then you can just
that's what I was
where
asking.
it is crop. Pardon?
That's what I was figuring out, because I was wondering if if you put it in, if you print it in like a bigger size than like your usual, will 300 not make it lose pixels?
Yeah, so that's the easiest way to do it.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Yep. We just need to get the mic there. Sorry, we're just grabbing the mic.
There's an effect I'm quite curious about. If you were to take like a physical photograph, then crumble it up, then stretch it out again, it would have those creases and probably pieces like which fall off like on the creases. So how would you like edit an image into something like that? It seems like it was crumbled up, but it was never.
So I would probably print the image, crumple it up, and then re-photograph it. Yeah, because there isn't really a manipulation kind of way to do it that way. So I would do it that way.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Cool, guys. I think we're good. Everyone all good? Okay, we got a question.
Sorry, man. After this, how do you save it?
Oh, so again, you just go up to the file. So, like I said just now, you would first flatten the image. So if you're going to save it to a JPEG, you're going to first flatten it. So you're going to right-click on the top layer, go to Flatten Image, click on that, and then from there you would go up to File, and then save as. Like I said, on the newest Photoshop, you need to save it as a copy. Go save it as a copy. You can change the name to whatever you want to, and then change it to a JPEG over there, and then you would just click save, and then then it's saved.
Okay. Okay. If you want to save presets,
Sorry?
a preset.
Oh, okay. So if you want to save the presets, you'll save it as a PSD file, so as a Photoshop file. Okay. So you won't flatten it, so that you can keep all of this editing that you've done. Yes. You would just say File, Save As, and then it'll stay Photoshop there. And then you've got the Photoshop folder that you can just click on that, go into it, and all your presets will be saved in there. Cool, is everyone sorted? Awesome, cool, then I think we're good. Cool, guys. Thanks.